Disney layoffs in the news, and you know what? This is bad news for one Whoopi Goldberg. Really, really bad news for her, ladies and gentlemen, and I'll tell you why. You know what? This show is expensive, The View, to produce. You've got expensive, headache-making talent, and I think Bob Iger's kind of had it. I mean, they learned their lesson, did they not, with the likes of little Snow White, who was kind of a problem. Snow White actually really did them in a big, big, big way. And so now everybody's paying the price and they're having to look at layoffs within the entertainment division. Going over to the CNBC headlines that just broke, Disney laying off several hundred in film, TV, finance. Again, we knew it was coming, right? Because this is a changing landscape. And independent media actually really matters. I mean, I think the reason you're here, the reason we're doing so well on this channel, is because you know that, well, I'm going to say anything, right? And I can say anything. And I don't have micromanagers, running the prompter. There is no prompter. We're just talking. And so it's a completely different ballgame, and you're getting an authenticity that I don't think does exist within the mainstream media. I know that because I worked on the mainstream media for a zillion years, and I've been at all these networks. And when I read this piece on Disney, I'm going to share with you, I was not familiar with the publication I'm going to show you, but it was so spot on. It's called The Rot at Disney Goes Deep by something called Compact Mag I'd never heard of. And it was a fascinating piece. I mean, they start off with the whole Snow White thing, right? And the fact that they've lost so much money. Remember this one? Good old Snow White with Rachel Zegler from New Jersey. What's going on in New Jersey? More on that later. Okay, Disney's rot runs deep. This Snow White thing, it debuted, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, in 1937, and it was record-breaking. I mean, that was some big shoes to fill. And so for little Rachel Zegler, the ingenue from New Jersey, to go out there and say she didn't like the movie and she didn't really get Snow White and it was weird. Remember all that? That didn't fly. That didn't play in Peoria, as they say, because, when you're constantly trashing these narratives that are so aspirational, it wears on people after a while. This was the highest grossing film of 1938. So you're in the middle of the Depression, right? Everybody's looking for some optimism. And they got it in Snow White because she was the princess who lived among the dwarfs, who, by the way, went to work every day, right? Hi-ho, off to work we go, right? There was like a work ethic. Yeah, you don't see any of that nowadays. Adjusted for inflation, the original Snow White, over its lifetime, has actually earned the most money of any animated film in history, over $1.5 billion. So, little Rachel, before you start putting it down, Snow White down, the whole thing down, you might want to think about the commercial aspect of all of it, right? It was super successful for a reason. In fact, as recently as 2008, the American Film Institute named it the greatest American animated film of all time. Yeah, you better believe it. And this little compact magazine that I kind of liked, they mentioned what I just told you about, the fact that, in the 1930s, you were struggling against adversity, you had these ordinary, hardworking American citizens that really wanted to work. And so, you're in the midst of the Great Depression, and Walt Disney got these people. His first feature film they carried it forward these themes that you saw in some of the original ones, of work ethic and sort of entrepreneurship, by bringing together a princess outsider and seven dwarfs, a small group of fellow souls nestled deep in the forest who stole the show upon entering the film. Ordinary miners with a strong work ethic, as they tramped off to their labors every morning, pickaxes slung over their shoulders, singing hi-ho, hi-ho, off to work we go, and chanting in unison, dig, 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 as they bent to their back-breaking task. These diminutive figures with charmingly differentiated personalities were protecting Snow White and aiding her in defeat. And they represented, in this case, quite literally, the triumph of the little guy. But you see, the little guy's no longer important in woke Disney anymore. The little guy's gotten lost. Disney doesn't like the little guy. The little guy is the white male, right? That oppresses us all. And so they strayed from this, certainly in this movie and everything they've been doing. I mean, Captain America, right? And they've got their African-American guy, nothing wrong with that. Believe me. And you know what? Snow White, being from Colombia originally, I think she's half European too. Who the heck cares, right? Having started in the classical music business, opera, you get over a lot when the heavy soprano at the end is dying of consumption. You kind of, you suspend disbelief. And by the way, all the time you may have an Asian woman playing, a young French cortisone. It doesn't matter. Like, I'm not saying this from the point of view that, you know, somebody has to quote unquote look exactly the part. But when you deliberately pick someone just because, oh, she's half Colombian, or, oh, he's black, he's great for Captain America, that's when it becomes kind of an issue, guys, okay? That's when we get kind of annoyed by it. And that's exactly what you did over and over. What do you think all these remakes are, right? So they go woke, and you know the expression, go woke, go broke, and that's exactly what has happened to Disney. So now they're sitting there, they're dealing with a changing media landscape, the reality that people can get their news, their entertainment elsewhere. Bloomberg had a piece over the weekend, a phenomenal piece actually on how YouTube is actually coming for everybody. That's good. It's good for me, right? Because YouTube's coming for everyone, even the sitcom business. Because why pay the big cable fee for a bunch of junk entertainment? I mean, a lot of it is just actually junk. Or why would you go and pay for a ticket at Snow? Unfortunately, I got 3 kids, right? And somebody in the family wanted to see it. And I got to tell you, the kids in the theater were bored. Not just my kids. I mean, I was bored out of my mind. Every single song could have been written by AI. There was no spirit, no ingenuity, no creativity. It was bland. It was boring. The script was bad. I felt bad for Gal Gadot. And, you know, it was a waste of time and it was a waste of money. And it wasn't just me or my kids. I looked around the theater and like there were popcorn fights breaking out. Nobody liked the movie. And so if you're not actually creating great products, all you're doing is losing money. So this thing was just a disaster. I mean, it cost them some $200 million, I guess, or that's what they brought in. But they had to hit $500 million just in order to break even, but they weren't anywhere near it. So what did they do? They went out and canceled the Rapunzel tangled redo that they were going to do. And they're thinking things over again. They're coming up with more layoffs, right? They have got to get rid of the woke individuals that have poisoned the company. The poison apple analogy is a good one. And so, you know, they made a mistake with the actress. Clearly, I mean, she's in her own world. She thinks she's got the #1 movie in the world. And she was delighted on its premiere there alone in a theater to watch it. Like we said, huge loss. I mean, I don't know how she's going to recover in terms of her career. But it's not just the entertainment movie division, right, that's losing so badly. It's actually the news division. It's ABC that they can't get rid of. They tried to sell, I guess Nexstar didn't offer them enough money for it. So they're trying to make a go of it, but yet they can't. They can't because the business is sort of fundamentally flawed. I mean, you look at their linear TV business, including ABC revenue, and it fell by 3% in the latest quarter, down to $2.2 billion. You get operating income. It did actually rise. So that tells you that they're trimming their costs, right? They're trimming their costs by getting rid of people, smart. But the reality is they still were not able to improve their profit in the linear television business. Yeah, no surprise. I mean, you guys are spending a ton of money to make a bunch of really bad products, including The View, and that's going to have to change. You're learning, and this may be why George Stephanopoulos decides to depart, as we hear he may. You know, after the network had to pay $16 million in a fine, $15 million to Donald Trump's library, another $1 million to the attorneys. I mean, because you just lie about them on the air. And now you've got this problem in The View. All right, so Bob Iger reportedly sat The View ladies down or communicated somehow to their EP rather recently that they needed to change their tone. Now, this had been going on for a while. I want to, full disclosure, we talked about it right here on the show, right after the election. I actually made the observation that somebody was talking to Whoopi Goldberg. I thought somebody was starting to talk to her because I was starting to hear a different kind of tonality, almost sounding like she was going to give the president, dare I say, a chance. Well, that was Iger apparently telling her, Whoopi, we got to shift. That was her producers after they fired them all, by the way, saying we're going to have to shift. Here's Whoopi making that seemingly MAGA shift.
I think what we're all saying is we're going to sit and watch. We're going to wait and see because we can't do anything else except.
I'm not going to wait and see. I mean, this guy is told us he's a retribution. He's going to be a dictator.
There's nothing to be done until you know what you're fighting. It's it's pissing in the wind doesn't help. You just get a wet face.
But I mean, what I'm saying is I have no false expectations that at 78 he's going to all of a sudden turn into another human being. And I'm not going to spend, I spent weeks telling people that he was apocalyptic. I'm not going to change now because it's still the same man.
Not treating every single thing like
I think that's when we lose credibility.
Well, here's the thing. You lose credibility in many different ways. If you don't know what you're talking about and you accuse him of something, then they're going to blow it back. That's why I say we need to wait and see exactly what you're going to
do. So she knows her job is on the line. I actually believe her contract was coming up, which is why, remember in the original View that they were putting out for weekends online, she wasn't in it. I think that was partly contract negotiations. And then you had the big awards ceremony, right? The Oscars or whatever you call it. One of them, I get them a little confused, but I think it was the Oscars. And she got up there to present an award. I think that was part of the negotiation too, because it was airing on ABC. So she's talking to the bosses behind the scenes and they're saying, you can't go after Trump like that. It's getting old. It's getting stale. The viewers don't want it anymore. So they sit her down. They read her the riot act. They tell all the hosts this because they were going in up fronts recently. That's like the big, shindig, the big conference where you have advertisers come in and they're going to buy advertising on a show. Well, who wants to buy advertising on The View? Can I ask you? I mean, that's kind of... So they're trying to get them to shift. They were told, I understand, to actually focus more on entertainment and pop culture. But apparently some of them, like Ana Navarro, did not want to do it. And Sunny Houston did not want to do it. Joy Behar. I mean, it's like you're seeing their public... Well, you're seeing their behind the scenes fight out there in public. So they're having this back and forth with producers. Producer, the guy who runs the show, is sitting there going, oh, what do I do with these women? I don't know. I think you just fire them all and get rid of it. You start over. And you know what? You're going to save a lot of money. Otherwise, you're just going to keep dealing with this.
And we're having a conversation.
Yes.
And we're going to go back to it. But before we do, I just want to say, this is the beauty of people who have different opinions. Sometimes it's messy. Sometimes we're messy. And I don't know if you noticed that when I came out this morning, I had trouble trying to figure out because there was nothing in the thing. There's something in the air. So just know something is chewing on us.
Yes. You know what's in the air, Whoopi?
What's
Trumpism. We lost the election. Wait a minute. We lost the election. We're miserable. Half of this country is miserable. And let's just tell the truth. We hate that he won. We hate it. And everybody's uptight and crazy right now.
Well, then I'm going to say to that machine over there, you stop blaming me.
Okay, I'm going to jump in. You see what that's about there? She's saying, I'm going to stop saying to that machine, the teleprompter, what's in the teleprompter? What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to say? Because you guys don't want me to be anti-Trump. So she's trying to, this is after the election, right? And nobody else on her team is willing to follow her leadership, even though the bosses are telling her, you can't be this anti-Trump. I mean, for one thing, we got Brendan Carr, the FCC director, breathing down our back. They're suing us for DEI stuff, violation of the Constitution. We may not get our affiliate deals renewed all over the country. I mean, they're in a lot of trouble. And so Whoopi, who's seen as the leader, right, on The View, is being told, you got to get everybody on the same page. So she's saying, well, help me. I don't know what I'm supposed to say because there's nothing in the teleprompter and I have only one place to go, right? And Joy is out there saying, well, of course, we have only one place to go because we hate Trump and we're not going to change our minds about how much we hate Trump. Let's keep listening.
You do what you're supposed to do. You bring up the words I need to say. So what I need to say is we're going to go back to the convo that we were having.
You see? So that is her publicly arguing with her producers there, right on set, saying, you know what, you guys want me to be this? Then write it for me. Let me see it in the prompter.
Must we? All right, go ahead.
Yeah, that's what that is. I'm telling you. And not everybody's on board. So I think Whoopi is. I think actually Whoopi is very commercial and she's made a decision. She needs to keep her job. So she's trying to keep the bosses happy. Bob Iger told her, this is what you got to do. And yet the rest of the team wants no part of it. I want you to take a look at this. So this is Sunny Houston, who's their quote unquote lawyer, who had to keep reading these legal notes, which became kind of a nightmare, right? Going into the election and thereafter. And so she clearly also does not have a thought in her head. Apparently, if it's not in the teleprompter or on her note card, she can't deliver it. Watch how she stares down at her notes. So somebody's feeding her this garbage, which tells me you've got a lot of people on different sides. The producers thinking one way, the talent thinking another, and you don't have people that have enough conviction internally, right, to actually speak what they believe, which is part of the problem with the entire show.
So Trump definitely doesn't understand economics. He's listening to someone who you say doesn't understand economics. And so there is no end plan. There is no game plan. He doesn't know how to negotiate. He couldn't negotiate himself out of a paper bag. But the issue here...
But his narcissism prevents him from listening to people.
From admitting that.
Yes.
And to Whoopi's point at the very beginning, meaning that clip that we played, that he's saying, everybody's kissing my butt. They're actually not, because China has accused the United States of blackmail and declared that Beijing would fight to the end. The Canadian Prime Minister, Mark Carney, has said its friendship with the U.S. is over. Australia's Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, said Trump's tariffs have no basis in logic, are not the act of a friend, and he called them totally unwarranted. Macron from France, he said the tariffs are brutal and unfounded.
Who said this? We went from the envy of the world to the enemy of the world.
Yes,
Who said that?
I don't know who said that, but what I will say, from my perspective, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, no country can count on America anymore. They're going to ice us out economically. We're going to be on our own because they're not going to be able to depend on a country that every 4 years could elect a dictator. They can't rely upon us.
They have to stop it now.
So I'm thinking maybe Sonny didn't get the boss's order, right? Again, they are being told, knock it off. We don't think this is working for ratings, and it's clearly not working for the company overall. So do they actually cancel the show? I mean, that's the big question. The ratings have miraculously held up. And so Sonny and Ana Navarro and Joy Behar are sitting there saying, but, our viewers hate Trump. This works for us. And the people in the business office are saying, well, it doesn't really work for us because nobody's wanting to buy the advertising for this show. And it's not courting, apparently, the audience that we want. And then on top of it, you got the FCC that's become kind of a problem. And I don't think Donald Trump has a whole lot of respect, shall we say, for ABC, right? Remember Terry Moran, the guy who Trump was like, wait a second, this was your big chance, Terry. Like, what happened? I had never heard of you. This is why I gave you the gig. So he's an ABC reporter, and, Trump thinks everybody's terrible at ABC. Well, this guy certainly wasn't doing them any favors either, right? Terry Moran, you wonder if he's going to get laid off over there. Let's take a listen.
Pretty close. Right up there. I campaigned on that issue. I've done an amazing job. I have closed borders. He said you couldn't do it. You wouldn't be able to do it. It would never happen. Well, it happened, and it happened very quickly. Wait a minute. When we have criminals, murderers, criminals in this country, we have to get them out, and we're doing it. By law. And you'll pick out one man, but even the man that you picked out, he said he wasn't a member of a gang. And then they looked, and on his knuckles, he had MS-13.
There's a dispute.
Well, wait a minute. He had MS-13 on his knuckles tattooed.
He had some tattoos that are interpreted that way. But let's move on.
Wait a minute. Terry.
He did not have the letter MS-13.
It says MS-13.
That was Photoshop. That
was Photoshop. Terry, you can't do that. Hey, they're giving you the big break of a lifetime. You're doing the interview. I picked you because, frankly, I never heard of you, but that's okay. I picked you, Terry, but you're not being very nice. He had MS-13 tattooed.
We'll agree to disagree. I want to move on to something else.
Terry, do you want me to show you the picture?
I saw the picture.
And you think it was Photoshop? Well,
here we go.
Don't Photoshop it. Go look at his hand. He had MS-13.
He did have tattoos that can be interpreted that way. I'm not an expert on them. I want to turn to Ukraine, sir.
Terry,
I want to get to Ukraine.
No. He had MS, as clear as you can be, not interpreted. This is why people no longer believe the news, because
when
it's
he was
fake
photographed
news.
In El Salvador, they aren't there. But let's just go on. They aren't there when he's in El Salvador.
They weren't there, but they're there now, right?
No,
but they're
in
now.
your picture.
Terry.
Ukraine, sir.
He's got MS-13 on his knuckles.
All right.
Okay?
We'll take a look at that.
You do such a disservice.
We'll take a look at that,
Why don't you just say, yes, he does, and, go on to something else?
It's contested.
Oh, wow. Well, between Snow White, between George Stephanopoulos, the Terry Moran disaster, and of course, none other than The View, I think they get a few problems at Disney, a few problems at ABC. We wish them luck. I think that you're going to actually see a lot more layoffs coming. Don't forget, ABC News was hit by hundreds of layoffs as recently as March. So here we are, March, April, May, June. Next quarter, you're getting more layoffs. It actually goes straight back to my thesis here that as this media environment changes drastically, you can't have, one, the woke nonsense that's costing you a lot of money, that's not actually anything that anybody wants to see. And second of all, you can't have these expensive productions with your live studio audience that has to clap every time Joy Behar does whatever, right? They send the clapping signs out. That doesn't work in this brave new world. And so you look at, for instance, even subscriptions, right? Streaming subscriptions to Disney down. And the only thing maybe they can try and pull off would actually be ESPN, because I think that people will pay up for ESPN, and so they'll have subscriptions for that, but they'll have to make a real transition away from the cable model. And so we're watching this here on the front lines in real time, and it's sort of kind of just amazing, right? Like, it's like everything I told you was going to happen keeps happening every single day.